See our CEO, Doron Klein, just joined us. Another Beit Shemesh. We've got 2 ticks for you, Doron. How are you?
Thank you, Teddy. Good to be here with everybody. Erev Tov Kulam. Shalom, Justine.
Shalom, shalom.
What, the TV?
I see my mother in South Africa has also joined. Please
Wonderful.
God,
Mother in South
have a chat soon too.
That's Aginsky.
Aginsky, yes. I saw my sister was on, but there she's come back.
Okay.
She's in Renana.
Aginsky, all of you, welcome to this wonderful event, Telfed with Justine Friedman, Living with Vitality. My name is Teddy Saitovitz. I'm a volunteer at the Telfed, and in a few moments we will be leaving the informal part of the event and starting today's event. In the meantime, we invite you all to share your video and tell us where you're from. We've got Johannesburg, we've got Ranana, we've got Matan, we've got Yarochev, and a big list. Anybody we haven't mentioned, would you like to tell us where you're from? Yarden. Again, I'd like to introduce those who've just joined to Aviva Tal-Or. She's the Telfed's head of volunteerism and community events. If anybody would like to join any event or be a presenter on any of our events, we invite you to do so and be in touch with Aviva.
Hello. My husband coming to
Hello. Anyway, we see you've done a good job on the wallpaper and we want to know. Just a few informal words before we begin about Justine and her family. I don't know if any of you know, but they also just made Aliyah quite recently. And I met Justine on the telephone while I was calling Olim who've arrived in the last 2 years. And I'm very proud of her that she had the courage to say she also wants to be a presenter, and she went for it. Well done, Justine.
Thank you, Teddy.
So again, if we're ready to start, and a good evening to everybody. Before I introduce Justine, I wanted to give Doron Klein a couple of seconds to have his words. CEO of Telfed, Doron Klein, please.
Sarabah, Teddy. I want to thank Teddy and Aviva for the wonderful events that they put together for us. We've really created an online community. Since we've started the online events that Teddy and Aviva put together, we've had over 1,000 participants in these gatherings, and it's really become an online community, which we hope will continue soon. We'll be able to meet face to face. So thank you very much to Teddy and to Aviva. So a few words about the organization that's behind this all, and that's Telfed. And that will lead into the introduction to Justine. I want to thank her very much for sharing with her knowledge with us this evening. Telfed was founded in 1948. We were created by the South African Zionist Federation in order to help the 800 South African Machal soldiers who came to volunteer to fight in the War of Independence. Machal is mitnadvei chutz laaretz, volunteers from overseas. And South Africa sent 800 World War II veterans to help assist the newly founded IDF in its fight during the War of Independence. And at the end of the war, so the South African Zionist Federation said, well done, guys and girls, you did us proud, now come home. And lo and behold, a lot of those 800 wanted to stay. And so the Zionist Federation said, okay, you know what, Telfed, continue operating, you don't have to close down. You have a crowd there to look after. So since 1948, we've been dealing with South African Klita until today. And certainly lone soldiers, as it was then, is a major part of our Klita department. We have a special division looking after the lone soldiers, just like we did in 1948. We have a full-time Klita advisor that deals with pre-Aliyah, post-Aliyah. We have a full-time employment advisor to help people before they make Aliyah, to discuss their employment needs. And once they've made Aliyah, to give them the advice they need in order to find jobs. And we have mentors. And yeah, I look at you with us here tonight. Perhaps you would like to become a mentor at Telfed for New Olim. That means if you are successful in your field and you've done well as an Ole from anywhere in the world, and you'd like to help New Olim from South Africa and Australia, so just drop a line to Aviva and she'll put you in touch with our employment advisor, and you can join our list of mentors who help New Olim. We also just generally, Aviva's in charge of volunteerism and events. So if any of you would like to volunteer at Telfed and become involved with helping our Ole community, please just drop a line to Aviva. She'll be happy for you to join our list of over 250 active volunteers at Telfed. We also provide scholarships, over 500 scholarships every year. So please make sure that if you're studying, or if your children are going to be studying, or even your grandchildren are going to be studying, make sure they're on the Telfed database so they can apply for the Telfed scholarships. It's over 2.5 million shekels a year in scholarships. We're also the only Ole organization that provides housing. We have 105 apartments in Tel Aviv and in Ra'anana, and the Olim can stay in those apartments at up to 30% below market rates. They can stay there for 3 years, so it's a great help for Olim to be in subsidized rentals. And 70% of the rental income goes to help the needy. Telfed assists 415 needy Olim every month. It costs us 2.5 million shekels a year, and a substantial amount of that comes from the rentals that we get from the subsidized rental housing. Telfed was awarded 2 government awards of excellence. So you would assume that if the government gives us such awards, that also, provide us with funding. Well, government funding amounts to less than 1% of Telfed's budget. So the other 99% we have to deal with. So if anyone's looking for a good cause to make your donations to, so please keep Telfed in mind. You can go onto the Telfed website. It's very easy to donate. And there's lovely greeting cards there. And you can choose a card and you can send it to a loved one as a present, in lieu of a present. So I want to encourage you to please utilize the Telfed website for that. So I want to say thank you to you all for joining us. Thank you to Justine, kol hakavod to Teddy, and to Aviva. I want to wish everybody a choref bari, a healthy winter, and have a wonderful evening. Toda rabah.
Thank you, Doron, for those. So again, welcome to everybody. We're just about to sit down and enjoy living with Vatelli with tea with Justine Friedman. Justine and her family made Aliyah from South Africa not long ago in November 2019. Justine is a South African trained clinical dietitian and mind-body coach who has a successful private practice for over 20 years. She worked in Johannesburg at the Manor Medical Center in Morningside. And after her Aliyah, she focused on doing her nutrition exam in Israel, and she's a fully licensed nutritionist in Israel. The focus of her treatment with clients is to educate them in making successful lifestyle changes to eating patterns and behavior that will holistically enable them to lead healthier lives. So since making Aliyah in 2019, Justine has passed her Israel Ministry of Health Nutrition license, and she started her business as a dietitian in Israel. She is in the process of setting up her own practice here, as I mentioned, and due to Corona now runs her business also on Zoom platform. She also has clients all over the world, including South Africa and North America. Justine has presented many talks and workshops, and in her spare time writes blogs and articles which have been published by the Lay of the Land website and the Rattle and Mum parenting blog. Justine, again, a warm welcome to you. We look forward to your wisdom.
Thank you so much, Teddy, and thank you to everyone for joining us here tonight. I really am very grateful to Telford for allowing me to present to you and to share a little bit of my own background and work history that I have and what I found has worked very successfully for clients of mine in the past. When coming up with the topic, it was not always so easy to think of how exactly to fit it appropriately, but I felt that living with vitality was really important for this day and age. And the reason being, because of the world that we're living in now, how much more important is vitality now than ever before. So as Teddy mentioned, my family and I made Aliyah in November last year, and choosing to make Aliyah was a very easy decision. That was not a hard decision at all. But the challenges that we've had and faced since being in Israel, as I'm sure all of you who've made Aliyah can attest to, is not as simple as the actual decision to make Aliyah. So one of the things that I found most challenging was starting from scratch. As Teddy mentioned, I had a private practice in South Africa, my own one for over 17 years. And in the center that I worked, I had a steady stream of referrals from the doctors that I worked with. They knew what my worth was. They knew how well I worked as an allied professional. But coming to Israel, nobody really knows you. And I'm grateful that I've still been able to keep up with a lot of my clients in South Africa and North America, and now even in New Zealand. And now it's time for me to also branch out into Israel. And thank God I have slowly started building a practice here in Modi'in. So when I first qualified, the focus of my treatment and the focus of the type of clients that I used to see, and still do to this day, were patients who wanted to focus a lot on weight loss and who came to me in order to treat their chronic illnesses, things like high cholesterol, diabetes, and blood pressure, also many other conditions. Over the years, what I found was that I'd started to branch out and include more coaching into my practice, because I found that no matter how perfect a meal plan or a diet I presented to my clients, if their lifestyle and thought patterns were not adjusting at the same time, then more often than not, what would happen is they wouldn't be able to maintain their focus, and any weight loss that they had successfully managed to achieve may be regained, or they may not have actually achieved their ultimate goal that they had set for themselves, or perhaps even their blood values that they wish to correct would not reflect as positive a result as they anticipated. So my own personal journey, alongside treating all of these clients over the years and my own life circumstances, also led me on a journey of self-discovery, and also led me to shift my whole mindset. And what I found then personally beneficial that aided me in my own life is something that I tried to implement and still continue to implement in the treatment and care of my own clients. On a personal note, I have had my own struggles with weight and eating habits over the years, specifically that stemmed from my teenage years. And I found that the personal growth and adjustment that I've had to my own approach to food and to my eating habits is what has also allowed me to have a more empathetic and successful approach in guiding my patients better over the years. What I've found over the years from assisting my clients is that embarking on a healthier lifestyle is not only about the food we eat. It's not only about that, but it also, what we need to do when we first meet, or I first meet a client, is also assess what their thought patterns are and what their internal dialogue is about food and their lifestyle that each and every individual experiences. Not long ago, I found a meme online, as we find all good memes these days, and it summed it up perfectly. It stated that diet is not only the food you eat, but what you put into your mind and what you allow into your environment as well. So if a healthy life is not only about the food that we eat, but also about the thoughts that we think and the messages we are absorbing, then how do we go about changing these internal messages? How do we learn to repattern not only our behavior, but our thinking as well, that will open us up to leading lives of vitality, which are focused really on taking care of ourselves in the most loving and nurturing ways possible. One thing I always like to impress upon my clients when I formulate a meal plan for them is that if it is going to be a way of life, then it is more than just about the food that they eat that is going to determine their success. There's also no perfect plan that can be adhered to 100% of the time. As human beings, we are just not programmed for perfection. And yet, we are so often demanding that of ourselves time and time again. I find the most practical plans are ones that we can slowly implement into our lives, together not only with the food choices that we make, but in rethinking how we view food and how we view our bodies. As I said, if we expect perfection in our eating habits, we are bound to fail. Just as, for example, if we program into Waze a destination, thank God for Waze with making Aliyah. I don't know how anybody did it before with a roadmap and in Hebrew. So Waze talks to me in English, and if I want to get somewhere, I program it in. But I cannot be guaranteed that the route that it gives me will be the actual road that I end up traveling. So too is it with a life plan that we try and put into place. We may know what the destination is, and we may put that into our navigation, but that may not actually be the road that we end up traveling. There may be heavy traffic along the way, or a sudden change that we have to adjust for. And for us to succeed with lifestyle changes, we also need to be able to allow ourselves the same flexibility that Waze or Google Maps offers us, so that we may not always be following the same journey that we pictured from the outset, and yet we may still reach the same destination. So what this means is that we are going to choose a meal plan that adapts and adjusts to our personal lifestyle, to our likes, our dislikes, our personal medical needs. The problem is that the plan is too restrictive. If we can never deviate, if we can't choose a different path and reroute along the way, then we are not going to get to that goal. So we need to have the flexibility within the scope of the plan to be able to also reroute and navigate our way around life's many detours. Part of the process of navigating what is an appropriate lifestyle plan, besides these food choices that we need to make, is also identifying this internal dialogue, these personal messages that we deliver to ourselves. These messages are what we hear over and over again in our mind. They may be related to certain situations, or it may be from an event that happens in your day that triggers it. I like to think of this internal dialogue like a script that is written for a movie. And when a specific scene is set, the same script is going to run time and time again. The key for us is to become aware of what scene it is that triggers these age-old scripts in our minds, and then begin to rewrite that script that you really want to end up living with. One thing is for sure, especially in today's world, we are not always able to control what happens around us. Especially now, I find that we need to be even more flexible and fluid with our days. It is so normal to start a day off with a plan in mind, only to find that somewhere in the course of the day, this all goes horribly off track. In these situations, if our patterning and our behavior is to cave to self-criticism and to give into food triggers, then we end up finding ourselves frustrated and disappointed. So if we can't control what is happening around us, then what we need to start practicing is how we respond instead. There's a lot of literature out there and numerous ideas of how this can be achieved. One thing that a lot of researchers tend to agree on is that the way that habits form over time by repeating the same behavior over and over again, thinking the same thoughts over and over again, also create the same patterns. So if we want to think different thoughts and we want to achieve a different behavior, then we need to cumulatively repeat new behaviors and new thought patterns over and over again, so that when we are faced with a challenge, the response that we have changes as well. So as if life wasn't already challenging, along came Corona 8 months ago. And I don't know about you, but for me, certainly, and I'm sure for everyone in the world, we've all experienced some form of restriction, some form of loss, some form of challenge that we never thought we would ever face in our lives. What it has also done is place a huge emphasis on how we handle uncertainty with each day that passes. And if we need, which we do, to live in this world of uncertainty, then what is required of us is to have more than the old coping mechanisms that we were used to. What we need to do is upgrade our tools for daily living in a COVID-19 compliant way, or a COVID-19 version of life. So in this strange new world that we find ourselves in, living a life of vitality has actually taken on a whole new shape and form. There are days and sometimes even weeks that we feel on top of things and we feel like life is almost back to normal, and I'll put that in inverted commas. And then all of a sudden we are thrown back into the pressures that are so new to all of us. From Zoom work to Zoom schooling, to wearing masks, to hygiene practices, to social distancing, to being isolated and not being able to see friends and family. This all adds a huge dynamic and it takes its toll. I found that particularly in the first wave and round of lockdown, that many of my clients complained about the weight gain that they experienced. And this, coupled together with a more sedentary lifestyle, saw a huge rise in chronic diseases of lifestyle. So this was, I'm talking about cholesterol being elevated, blood pressure rising, more people being diagnosed with diabetes or metabolic syndromes, more people having issues with inflammation. What also came along with that was a huge emotional component, and a lot of spikes were seen, and still are to this day, in people experiencing anxiety and depression more than they would have before, or people who are newly diagnosed with this. A lot of people felt that after the first lockdown ended, that this eased and they could almost get a grasp back on their health. And then along came lockdown number 2 or number 3. I don't know where we're up to by now. I think we're only on 2. And so many slip back into these habits. What I want to explore further with you, based on what I've already discussed, is how to shift and navigate this new world, not only from a nutrition perspective, but from also the thoughts we think and this inner dialogue that I'm speaking about. So I want to define what vitality is, and what it comes up with, if you put it into our famous Dr. Google who knows everything, is that vitality refers to a feeling of aliveness. The word itself comes from the root vita, or life, and in the physical sense, this vitality refers to feeling healthy. It comes from feeling capable and feeling energized. It is also expressed as the capacity for survival and for the continuation of a meaningful and purposeful existence. So when we think about vitality in this way, when we want to achieve vitality, this means we are looking to find within each day more meaning and purpose, and to feel that we are not merely just passing time by, passing the time that we are here for a limited period on earth. We want to feel that we are unique. We want to feel that we can make a difference, and that what we make a difference with actually has an impact on the world. So when we wake up each day and we face the day with a sense of purpose and a drive and a zest for life, instead of just passing by the time, then what we are actually achieving and accomplishing is amazing, even if it's just something small. So my mom, who's online, has a brother, my uncle, who lives in America, who immigrated from South Africa many years ago. I'm speaking about 1979 or 1978. And he's written 2 very inspiring books. And in one of the books, he describes how we build a better tomorrow. And how we do this is by starting with today. So we may have a vague idea, or some of us have even a much clearer knowledge of what we want to achieve in our lifetime, but we don't always know how to get there. With this premise in mind, it means that the best way to start building towards a better tomorrow is to start today, to start each day and take steps towards the achievement of that goal. So if we take one small step each day, eventually with time, we find ourselves at our destination. Particularly with the current uncertainty that we live with. For example, a while back, I contacted Teddy and I said, oh, I don't know if I can do the 13th of October. We're supposed to be going to Eilat on holiday. But I'm sure if I've got an internet connection, I can still do the talk. Well, Corona had other plans. I'm certainly not sitting in Eilat giving this talk to you. So it's not always possible to set goals and be able to stick to them. The problem is when this leads to a feeling of frustration, lack of control, and failure. A typical example of this is setting out on deciding to eat more healthily or following, and I'm going to put it in inverted commas, diet, because I don't like to call it that. For me, I like to encourage my patients to follow a healthier way of life and follow more of a meal plan that is about fitting their lifestyle. So let's say you've begun this journey, and a week into your new regime, it's a family member's birthday, and your favorite cake is staring you in the face. What do? So if you eat the cake, does this mean you can't achieve your goal? Building a life of vitality into this situation means that taking a slice of cake, enjoying it, and picking up where you left off, not the next Sunday or Monday, or the next month, or the next year, but once you've finished eating and enjoying that slice of cake, is what living vitality is about. It means that when one is able to face a food challenge like this and not see it as a huge setback, but as a moment of a pause in the process, then any sense of failure or disappointment is averted. So often I hear from clients or from people who want to engage in a program with me that they can't start a program until after the next Chag or after the next birthday. And this last month was a perfect example. I had somebody who wanted to come online and wanted to book an appointment, and then she said to me, you know what, it's going to be Rosh Hashanah, it's going to be Yom Kippur, it's going to be Sukkot. You know, when October's over, then I'll get back to you. And I understand where she's coming from, but the truth is that, especially in Israel, that meant actually only 5 days of Chagim. It was 2 days of Rosh Hashanah, breaking the fast at home, where unless you went all out just for who was at home, you know, most of us, I think, had simple meals. And then it was 2 days of 1 day of Sukkot, which was on a Shabbos, and then Shmini Atzeret Simchat Torah, which was also on a Shabbos. So out of 21 days, only 5 days were Chagim. So what I want to focus on then is that if you were to have said, okay, there are going to be obstacles, but on the days that I can make progress, every small step that I take will make a change in the right direction. There's another aspect to this, and I've brought it up in a previous talk of mine, but I felt it was important to discuss again. And that is that often clients engage on a road of making changes, but they're actually fearful of succeeding. What I mean by this is that if we've told ourselves our whole lives that we are only going to do something or be happy when we weigh a certain weight or look a certain way or have certain things, then what does that mean for us if we actually do achieve that goal? So what I'm challenging here is the theory that if we feel safe and secure in the stories that we tell ourselves and the labels that we give ourselves, no matter how detrimental they are for us, and we then break that mold, does it redefine who we are, and how comfortable are we with redefining? So what I'm trying to get at here is allowing yourself the possibility of shifting the way that you approach situations so that you can start moving past labels that may have been associated with who you are, either because somebody made a comment once that you associate yourself with a certain person, like character trait, or that you personally over the years have told yourself that this is who you are. Recently, I had a patient who I helped specifically on this topic, who found that her biggest concern was that when she felt a certain emotion, she felt that that was the person that she had become. So I'll give you an example. If you have a moment of anger over a situation, does this mean you are an angry person? Or does this mean that you've experienced a situation that has caused you to be angry? If you have a situation in life that causes you sadness, does this mean that you are then a sad person? If you experience feelings today of happiness and anxiety tomorrow, does this mean that you're prone to mood swings? Or are these feelings and emotions merely our responses to the situations we find ourselves in? So the process that I take my clients through in this situation is to remove the criticism, the self-criticism and judgment that they often find with labeling themselves in respect to their emotions and trying to reframe this. So I'll give you a practical example of what this tool looks like in practice. So if you find yourself in a situation that triggers an emotion, be it anger or sadness or happiness or disappointment, fear, anxiety, pleasure, you can go through a list of what maybe you would experience in a day. As you're experiencing the emotion and become aware of it, the trick in that situation is to be mindful of experiencing the emotion and then witness the emotion. So you become a witness to the experience as opposed to being caught up in the wave of the emotion. So what I like to do is encourage my clients to find where in their body they're feeling the emotion. Anxiety may sit in the pit of a stomach. It may be up in your throat and you can't communicate. Anger may be feeling that blood boiling, or it may be an increase in heart rate. The next step, after identifying what the emotion is, to witness what it is and where you're experiencing it in your body, is to tune into what could have possibly triggered it. Sometimes we know why, sometimes we don't. But this way of observing and noticing the emotion allows you to bear witness to it. And by bearing witness to the emotion, instead of feeling overwhelmed by it, you allow yourself to observe it and watch it and feel it pass through you without actually attaching yourself to it. When this is something you can start building into a daily routine of self-awareness, then you're starting to take a step towards living with a greater vitality. There is another tool I want to share with you tonight that I believe is a must-have for a Living with Vitality toolbox. And that is, I call it my reset button. I posted on Facebook a while ago. I'm happy to send it out. It's a big, nice red button that says reset on it. And what this is that it works in a very similar way to how if you have a glitch on your cell phone or computer or any technology, that you have the option of either resetting or rebooting or switching off and starting again. So I'll set the scene for you of how this works in everyday life. Let's say you start your day and it's a pretty standard way to start, and somewhere along the way you hit a speed bump. An example of this can be a delay in a meeting perhaps, and then your schedule is affected, or your child, and this happened to me, is in capsule A at school, and the school informs you that they actually should be at school when they told you it should be a different time. Why didn't you know? Because the message came in Hebrew, you haven't had time to translate it, and you therefore have got the day completely wrong. And you fly out the door to take your child to school. Or you're driving somewhere, you hit traffic, and you are now stuck and unable to get where you want to go by a specific time. In these situations, it is very easy to feel despair and frustration and anger and anxiety. So many of my clients report in this situation, particularly making poor choices, making poor food choices in response to these situations. This can often lead them off track, and personally, obviously, I've experienced this myself, otherwise I wouldn't be able to educate on it. This leads them off track, sometimes for a number of hours or days, where it is totally normal for them to eat out of response to these unexpected detours. So the tool that I found so useful in decreasing the impact of this behavior and extending too long is this image of the reset button in our mind's eye. So they can literally be in the middle of a breakout meal or a binge or whatever they want to call it and hit reset. So the trick to implementing it is to once again be able to be mindful with where they find themselves. It takes actually hitting pause for a moment, pausing in the moment, allowing them to observe what they're doing, reflect on why they began down that path, and then take another moment to decide if what they are doing is actually worth the outcome. So what is very, very normal is to experience feelings of guilt, especially after deviating from a meal plan or when you've decided to be healthier or you're on your diet. But what the reset button does, if it's used correctly, is it gives them the ability to take a moment, let go of the guilt, and start again then and there, and not wait for the next week and month and year. Before we end, I'd like to share the following idea with you. We are living in a world, as I've said, and we are all experiencing, that is changing literally from day to day. This is not something that we are used to, and most of us are not very comfortable with this need to shift on a constant basis. If you personally have found a way to navigate these waters, then you're one of the few amongst the millions who are seeing each day as an overwhelming and huge challenge. What is so normal is to have these feelings when so much around us is out of our control. But the more we are able to go within, to learn more about who we are and find meaning and explore what our unique role is or could be in this world, then the easier each day becomes. So if living a life of vitality is about building meaning and purpose, then the path to building a life of vitality will take daily practice. And in time, it becomes incredibly rewarding. Starting on this journey will give you improved feelings of self-worth, of self-esteem, and the knock-on effect of all of this is developing a more positive relationship with yourself, with food, and with your body. While on this journey, the same way that programming into ways sometimes takes us on different routes, is completely normal to have ups and downs and detours, because these tests are there for us to see where we are in our lives. They may cause us to slip back into old habits. And for many, this occurred during lockdown and the extended time that Corona literally has threatened our day-to-day lives. What I'm encouraging you to do at times like these is to have self-compassion. Instead of the usual criticism and rebuke that we may jump to at a time like this, to use the tools that I've encouraged you to use tonight, to pause, to regroup, and to take the steps, no matter how small, to reinitiate one's efforts to focus on daily practices that actually enhance your life. So I've presented these two tools to you tonight. The one is being a witness to your emotions, and the second is being empowered to hit that reset button if you feel you need to reboot your day. My wish for all of you tonight, and thank you for joining me, is that you've taken something meaningful from what I've shared, and that a spark of possibility has been ignited within you to be able to begin a journey or to even continue your journey on a path to nurturing a relationship with yourself that is more loving and caring, and that will lead to a life filled with vitality, meaning, and purpose. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Justine, so much. Aviva, are there any questions in the chat? If not, please unmute yourselves, everybody. And if you'd like to ask Justine a question, please feel so to do so now. Hello, Les, would you like to ask a question? How are you?
You know, can I just say thank you? What an amazing presentation. Really, thank you very much, Justine. It was really superb.
Thank you so much. I wanted to actually mention, Teddy, and to Aviva as well, that if anybody would like to find out a little bit more, I'm happy to send my Calendly for like a 10-minute discovery call. If anybody wants to just touch base and ask a more personal question that maybe is not so comfortable on this forum.
Good. Also, what I suggest is that you give your email address now, and if anybody would like to
Perfect. I'll type that into the chat.
Put it into the chat. And normally what we do, unless anybody objects, Aviva sends a list of whoever registered, and you can also send them a mail.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so I'm going to, there my email address is in the chat. You're welcome to contact me.
Do you want to just say it out and then?
Yes, it's healthydiet7@gmail.com.
Okay, fantastic. So
thank you, Batcha from Spats.
Have we got any questions on the chat?
Everyone's just saying
please,
thank you.
could you put the email up again?
Thanks.
No problem. Maureen
Please, could you
Frankel,
put the email address again?
No problem, Maureen. We put it for you right now.
Shall I type it in again?
Yeah, please. Or just say it for her.
It's healthydiet7@gmail.com.
Maureen, you got it? Anyway, and if anybody doesn't have it, you're welcome to contact Aviva or myself, and we're happy to share the details.
Can I say something to Les?
Sure.
Les, I wanted to
first of all, who's okay.
That's my mother.
Yes.
My aunt was Hazel Kussner, who lived next door to you.
Oh, wow. What, you know, wow, that's amazing.
So that's who we are.
Kussners.
Jewish geography on
You know,
Telford.
I must tell you, she was like the most popular doctor in Beit Vegan, maybe even in Jerusalem.
I know.
And what a lovely, lovely lady. Wow. And what a small world. Wow.
Yes.
Anyway, while we're on Les, for those of you who don't know, Les will also be giving a presentation later in the month, and I invite you all to join as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Justine, thank you so much for such an insightful talk and for giving us of your time. We appreciate it so much.
Such a pleasure. Thank you for giving me the opportunity, Aviva and Teddy.
Anytime.
Thank you.
Just to mention that Aviva's parents are also online from South Africa, so there are quite a few parents and children online.
And
Very
sisters and siblings, good.
Siblings, brothers, cousins, aunties. So thank you everybody for joining us. Your last opportunity to ask Justine a question. Yes, yes, no, no, and then if not, again.
You're welcome to get hold of me on my email.
On your email, and I invite you all to join the upcoming Telfed events and look forward to seeing you at the next event. If you wait 1 second, I'll give you the exact. Anyway, I don't see it now, but all the Telfed events are on the Telfed website, and I do invite you all to join.
Thanks so
Thank
much.
you, everybody, for joining us. The next one will be the Tuesday, the 20th.
Okay, and we look forward.
Thank you, everyone.
Also an evening event, if I remember. 8 o'clock
Correct.
event. Thank you
Yes.
so much.
Thanks so much, everybody. Have a good evening.
Thanks. Bye, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.